Welcome back. We've gone through 5 sessions already of this course, Management of NGOs. My name is Justice Baule. Again, I'm going to go through one more session with you, section 6. We're going to be looking at ethical theories. In the last session, session 5, when we talked about theories that explain the rise of NGOs, towards the end of it, I mentioned to you a couple of theories that can be used to judge the activities of NGOs. In this section, we are going to go a bit more detail into these ones and to look at how NGOs' activity can be judged. Is it okay if NGOs gave food to people and treated them anyhow? That is what we're going to be talking about. So in this session, we'll be looking at all of that. We'll look at a couple of theories and how you can judge NGOs when they come to your community, or how people will judge your NGO when you form one, and all of that. Note that people have rights, they cannot be abused. When we talk about ethics, we often talk about what is right and what is wrong. So ethics, and I know that those of you who are public admin, you will do the course Introduction to Ethics in Administration, and there you will do a little bit more on ethics. But on this occasion, we are looking at ethics and ethical theories. Ethics is the right or wrong in simple terms. So we say that something is ethical if it's considered right. We say it's unethical if it's wrong. So our ability to say to distinguish between right and wrong is what ethics is about. So in this session, we are going to look at what theories can be used to judge whether or not a particular action of an NGO is right or not right. And we will talk about 3 of the theories in this session. The first one is utilitarian theory. The second one is rights theory. And the third one is fairness or justice approach. Justice is my name, remember. So I'm happy to talk about that theory. The first theory is utilitarian approach, and utilitarianism says that or conveys good. So when we say utility, we are talking about value for people. So if you have heard about the utility of a particular thing, we're talking about what satisfaction that thing brings to someone. So utility talks about the satisfaction, the good that is done to people. And so the utilitarian approach says that we can measure the ethical position of NGOs based on the amount or quantity of good they do to society. In other words, if an NGO were doing some activity, we will say that NGO's activity is ethical if it conveys a lot of good to society and less harm. So utilitarianism will talk about more good or less harm. Now, so the reverse of what I've just been talking about is that if I have to do harm to someone, my action is considered ethical if the harm is very less. But my action, if I have to do good to somebody, my action will be considered ethical if the good is more. But also that we're looking at the extent of people or numbers of people who will benefit from my action if I were to do it. Oftentimes, the very simple example that illustrates this point very well is if I were a driver and I had, all of you students who are taking this course in my bus, and there are 120 of you in that bus, and then I was on the highway and one person crosses me, and if I dodge that person and save the life of that person, I will run all of you into the ditch, and everybody else, including myself, would die. What will be your suggestion? Should I dodge, save the life of one person and kill 121 people? You probably will shout no. Why? Because the argument is that we should save the life of more, we should do more good than harm. And therefore, NGOs will be judged in the same way when they do work. If you do a project, how many people are benefiting from that project and stuff like that. That is what utilitarianism talks about. That NGOs must try to do more good and increase their good and reduce harm when they do their activities. So an NGO's action is right or is ethical if it conveys more good than bad. The rights approach says that every individual has a right, and I was talking about it earlier. Every individual has a right, and that an NGO should never disrespect the rights of people. In other words, every action that your NGO or the NGO you work for does, everything you do, you must respect the rights of the beneficiaries. So you can't go to a community and begin to infringe on the rights of the people, to do things that would abuse the rights of people just because you want to help them. Every human being has a right. And so you could have done very good to society, but if you violate their right, they can take you to court and the court will judge in their favor. So we say NGOs should respect the rights of people when they act. What do we mean by that? Don't violate the rights of people, don't punish people, don't inflict pain on people, don't humiliate people by showing their pictures and nakedness to people. Don't extort money from people because they have a right to own their property and all of that. So NGOs, note, you cannot just do anything because the rights of the people you deal with would have to be respected. We also say that NGOs need to be careful when they act, and that they should apply the fairness and justice theory or approach, and which is that be fair to all manner of people. In other words, if I were to discriminate between two or amongst three people, I need to have a justifiable reason. If you are just watching this video now, if I were to say that in your exam I was going to add 10 marks to your marks, why shouldn't I do that for every other person? In other words, if I am acting, I should act across board and my action should be fair. So if one person deserves 10 additional marks, then it should be as well that everybody else deserves it. If I have to be able to give you alone 10 marks and not other people, then there must be a reason, and that reason should be legitimate within the law that governs university exams. Now, if that is not the case, then I cannot do that. So we say that when you are treating people as an NGO, you need to be mindful of the fact that you treat them fairly and you treat them with some justice. That you apply the same rule across board, and that if you have to discriminate, there must be a justifiable reason, and that justifiable reason must be valid in law before you can go ahead and do that. If you don't do that, we say you would have breached the fairness approach, and people can take you on and win if they go ahead and do that. So in this session, that's all we're talking about, the things that will let one person, an NGO, be considered an ethical or not ethical NGO. An NGO that conveys a lot of good is ethical. An NGO that respects the rights of people is ethical. The NGO that acts fairly to all manner of people is ethical. The reverse of all of these means that that NGO is not ethical. And I want you to take an exercise and begin to list some of the things that if NGOs were to do, you will consider them as not being ethical. And of course, that should guide you when you are designing your projects. And in the selection of people, you should treat equals equal and unequals unequal. That is what I leave for you today. Even in your private life, make sure you treat people equals equal and unequals unequal. That's what we call fairness and equity. Thank you very much.